Neqotkuk N'Tetli Mikwi Tahasoltipen. Too big we are remembering.
Neqotkuk was Shane Perley-Dutcher, Duxus Naga Gintuswuptuk, Neqotkuk. I come from the Neqotkuk First Nation. When I was about 5 years old, I was just a young guy living on the reserve with my mom, and she wanted to keep me busy, so she kept bringing me around Shirley Berry Peter Clare when I was very, very young, and they were my first exposures to the arts and the whole idea of what art is. So I just remember them being my first art teachers. So yeah, I mean, I was always creative, but they were the first ones to take me through some sketching and drawing techniques, and shading and contour drawing applications and so on. So yeah, so that's the kind of stuff they taught me, and then of course being exposed to Peter Clare, watching him making his baskets and seeing how he, the process of pounding ash and making the splints and putting them together to make a basket. Like paintings of women was just, it was very influential to me. I'm a mixed media artist. I was formerly trained as a silversmith, so it took 4 years at the College of Craft and Design to learn how to work with metal, silver, gold, precious metals, and jewelry manufacturing. So I'm a trained silversmith, but I also have been exposed to a lot of different artists throughout my life, from, like I said, from being 5 years old to, in my teenage years and so on. I've been exposed to different artists throughout different communities that have really inspired me to stay connected to different mediums. So now I incorporate as many different mediums as I can into my artwork, but I still primarily work with metal, but kind of getting out of the jewelry realm and focusing a little bit more on sculptural, one-of-a-kind production. I had dabbled a little bit in high school. I do remember having one project where I had to make a ring in art class, but that was just one of many projects. I mean, I enjoyed all art, anything art. I loved it. So when I went to the college, I had no idea that that I was going to be an artist for the rest of my life. I didn't know. I just enjoyed the process. So I went to the school there for the first year. I did all right. I mean, my academics weren't high. And I did, I almost flunked out of my first year at the college, and then I started taking it more seriously, and then I just got into it, and I just sacrificed everything, and I just focused on my art, and then I started to excel. And then when I tried the jewelry manufacturing program there with Brigitte Clavette, I just fell in love with it. My first class, it was literally that, it just clicked. Like as soon as I went in there, I started working with the tools and bending the metal and working with the torches. Just something clicked, and I just really enjoyed that process versus, like learning the history of typography in graphic design, right? Like that was one of my other ones I tried out was graphic design, and didn't like it at all. It was kind of like I needed more engagement, I guess. So yeah, and plus I took the Native Studies program there with Gwen Risha, and she really helped to kind of help guide my sense of identity, sense of purpose within the arts, and how you apply your own worldview into what you do. So a combination of that and being exposed to really great artists at the college helped shape my direction. I always connected better with Indigenous content definitely in the college when I was learning more about like our own people's creative practices. That inspired me more than learning like the history of like surrealism or those different like the art history components. Like I mean that stuff's important and it's interesting, but not as interesting as learning about the group of seven, Indigenous group of seven. Like Alex John Bay and Norval Morrisseau and all these other artists who were like setting the bar for what Indigenous artwork was in Canada at a time when like Indigenous people weren't accepted at the same level as a non-Indigenous artist, and they were kind of pigeonholed into a certain category. So, like learning about the struggle of our own people, how they brought their own worldview into that the arts realm, the arts field was really inspiring to me. And then when I was in high school too, like learning about like Native studies and language, like with the Malda at high school was really helped me to stay engaged, right? Because it was that one course that I look forward to going to, right? Versus a lot of the other ones which I just couldn't care less about. And I just got through them. Where versus the ones that had more indigenous content helped me to reconnect to my own identity, which is something that I struggled with my whole life, pretty much. So, yeah. So I think having that kind of more indigenous content in the educational Western institution was definitely helpful to keep me in there. So when I say pigeonhole, like there's certain expectations on what an artist will make. And I'll just use the very simple example of, you know, someone asked me to make them a dream catcher. You know, like to someone who doesn't know a lot about indigenous culture, indigenous arts, indigenous worldview, will just assume everybody who's indigenous makes dream catchers, right? So, so people have asked me that numerous times if I would make them a dream catcher, and I just straight away say no. I don't really make those. It's not that I, you know, like it's not that I don't think that they're part of indigenous culture or whatnot. I don't know. You know, there's certain stories and theories behind it, but it's not something that I encourage. I'd much rather encourage our own worldview, our own design elements, like the double curve motif in the work that I do, and how that was part of our development as indigenous people, like before contact and after contact. So, you know, when people try to push me into this creative corner where they think I should be making things a certain way, I can identify it right away and easily just get out of that and confront it because, you know, people do it easily because just the education hasn't been there over the years and our people haven't been involved in the whole education of, you know, non-indigenous people. So it's only now that they're starting to push and get us involved in all levels of the education, and the funding's starting to be there for us to do that. So yeah, so it's easy to pigeonhole Native artists into a certain way of making things. My creative process, like, you know, I see it first. Like usually every piece that I make, I'll see it first, and then I go through a process of compromising. Because there's what I'll see, and then when I start to actually make it and bring it to an actual visual life, it usually changes. It's usually never exactly what I see. So I mean, I will sketch a little bit, but I don't sketch as much as I used to, because I just kind of want it to be a little bit more organic when I make something. I want that creative process to just live in that connection between who I am and what I make. You know, I don't have to like, is it like this or that? No, I just want to just start grabbing the materials, start making, because it's almost exciting when you actually create something that looks really amazing, has a very strong visual presence, and it's just something that you came up with and just try it. You know, it's a really rewarding process. Main identifiers in my style was like very high polished silver jewelry for quite some time. When I was, you know, from school to like my first 10 years as a jeweler, I think I made everything really shiny and, you know, very, like, I want to say blingy, like, you know, like bling bling, right? Because it had like a very high polish and so on. So I think as I become more sculptural with my stuff and a lot more figurative with the forms and so on, I'm starting to embrace a lot more texture and a lot more subtle details within my work. One of my most meaningful pieces was the residential school apology pin that I made in 2008 for the residential school survivors. Although, like, I mean, I was commissioned by the national chief at the time, Phil Fontaine, to create 500 lapel pins to commemorate the apology when the government of Canada apologized for the residential school experience on June 11, 2008. And so I, you know, sacrificed a lot to fill the order, and those 500 pins were given to the residential school survivors that were going to be like present during the apology from Stephen Harper. So my work was in the Parliament when the apology was given, although the apology hasn't erased the effects of the residential school system. I feel like it meant a lot to me to have my piece represent a healing journey for those residential school survivors. So I guess when I think of meaning, I think of the impact that my work has to our people, like the Skijinoi people, and I think that's the most meaningful to me, and that'll be that piece there. Like if I'm not making my work, there's definitely part of me that's not balanced. So and even in the kind of work I'm doing, like I have to get away from metal sometimes to connect to a different medium, like ash or birch or whatever maybe go pick sweetgrass for some baskets, or like there's just a connection that I have, like that is spiritual when I touch something that our ancestors would have used. You know, like there's that whole side of art that is intertwined with more than just how it looks. It's about like how you feel and what happens to you when you do it. It's definitely every piece is a piece of me, right? But I mean, even although I'll be either trying to communicate, like I said, like a residential school pin. You know, the first thing I thought of was a feather to represent that, because I was always told by my elders that the feather represents your life journey, like the middle stem. So to me, using a feather to represent that healing was something that was part of my own spiritual upbringing. So it was just natural for me to incorporate that into my physical work. So there's that connection between the physical look of a piece and the spiritual background behind why it looks that way. So, and I think that's pretty much alive in every piece that I make, and I want to continue to do that. Get on my website, Facebook, Instagram. Usually, I think it's all Aduksis Jewelry Designs, so ADUKSIS Jewelry Designs. Facebook and Instagram, and on the website. Immersed into it my whole life. I mean, living on and off reserve, like I said, being around, like, you know, in Kingsclear, St. Mary's, you know, and up in Tobic here. I think those are the three communities I spent most of my time on, and my mother always kind of brought me, like she was a community health nurse in Kingsclear and St. Mary's, so she was connected with those communities and some of the artists there. So Veronica Atwin was the first basket maker that really got me to make a basket in her kitchen. So her husband would be pounding the ash outside, and then he would bring the splits into her kitchen. And then she taught me how to make my first fancy basket at like, must have been like 7, 8 years old. You know, and then like I worked with the Brookses in St. Mary's on like canoe building and working with birch bark, and learned a lot from that experience, and with Ned Bear, who was a mask carver from there. All those experiences with different knowledge holders from the different communities at different parts of my life has shaped my creative lens. I started learning the language and songs probably I think my first memory of learning was in my first sweat lodge with my dad, who raised me, Stephen Dutcher. He brought me to my first sweat lodge here in Tobic, actually, with Danny Innes and Harry Laporte, and I can't remember who else was in there, but I remember that was like one of the first times I remember like being part of a really enriching ceremony, hearing the language sung, and from there, you know, like although I veered away from culture and kind of got more into substance abuse and struggled that way, I always came back to the songs, and so when I stopped using and abusing alcohol and drugs in high school, that's what I turned to, was doing sweats on you know, ongoing basis, like, you know, twice a week, drumming, like, you know, got into real, try to be as Skijinug as possible. It's almost like the group that we were with, like we kind of all quit at the same time because we all struggle, we all had the same struggles, right? So we all decided to just stop, and we started a drum group, and we just, that's what kept us going. And you know, and then we were like little warriors. We always looked forward to a protest, or, you know, sticking up for our people. And we used to jig school to go to like the Native Awareness Days in St. Thomas, just so we could hear our elders speak about their worldviews, their culture, you know, stuff we weren't getting in high school, right? So we were, you know, that always was very, very important to us. It's like just be proud of small wins that you have every day, whether it's you learned a word, you learned a song, you helped one of your elders out, whatever it may be. Like, just be proud that you've made a positive choice in your own life. Like, if you get discouraged easily, you know, I know a lot of youth do, you know, or like especially people battling addictions, like they have a setback and then, you know, they get depressed. And you know, I hate to see family members like that. I hate to see our youth like that. So it's like, just be proud of small wins that you have every day, whether it's you learned a word, you learned a song, you helped one of your elders out, whatever it may be. Like, just be proud that you've made a positive choice in your own life. Like, don't get so, you know, caught up in beating yourself up over what you didn't do. I think it's just so important for them to just try to keep a positive way of looking at themselves. I always said, just don't let your fear stop you from trying. And I think, you know, as simple as that is, I think that kind of resonates a lot with even what I do, because I'm always trying to push the boundaries of what I do, and I'm always afraid of that next step. I'm always afraid, like, is this the next? I don't know, but I can't stop. You know, I can't, you know, if I don't go through that emotion of being afraid, then I don't know what's on the other side of it. So I have to, just by nature, I just do how I am. I have to know what's going on, what's going to happen if I, you know, if I apply for this or if I apply for that. And just facing those fears has helped me to get to the next level. The power of community can make or break you. And I think that we have to focus on, you know, being a positive community and working on trying to build each other up. You know, like I do see a lot of tearing each other down and trying to put a negative light on others and so on. But also I do see people working really hard to bring people up. So I just hope that we can focus on bringing more of our own people up. I think that's what we really need to do, especially in this climate we have now.
Neqotkuk N'Tetli Mikwi Tahasoltipen. Too big we are remembering.